welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's Rookie Series webinar session, Intro to Competitive Wheelchair Football. So we've reserved time at the end of the presentation for a question and answer portion. So during the bulk of the presentation, your mic will be muted until we open it up for questions at the end. So feel free to also ask any questions you may have in the chat or using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. So the purpose of these Rookie Series webinars is to really provide general information about our organization, just some background information about adaptive sports and our programs, and then get into more specific information about the particular topic. So tonight, competitive wheelchair football. And then we'll cover different participation opportunities and how you can get involved in our programs, and of course, answer any questions you may have. So my name is Brooke Kieber. I'm a program manager with Adaptive Sports Ohio, primarily working with our Wayne County programs. And then with me tonight is Brian Vaverka. He is our director of programs. So I'll start by just providing some background information about Adaptive Sports Ohio if you're not as familiar with our organization. We are a nonprofit that provides a variety of community-based and interscholastic sports opportunities throughout Ohio. We were founded in 2009 by Lisa Followay, and the idea for the organization was inspired by her son Casey, who was born with spina bifida. So Casey was always really active as a child and loved sports growing up, and he wanted the chance to play sports like his peers. And so when Lisa discovered how playing adaptive sports immensely benefited Casey, she felt that others with physical disabilities should have that same opportunity to gain those benefits. So that's really how we were born. And our mission is to remove barriers to ensure that individuals with physical disabilities have a chance to play and utilize sports to elevate ability and empower futures. We are headquartered in Worcester, Ohio, but we also have satellite offices in Cleveland and Youngstown, and then active programming in Wayne, Cuyahoga, Mahoning, Lucas, Stark, and Summit counties. And then through our different interscholastic opportunities and our annual overnight summer camp, our reach is really statewide. A common question that we get is who is eligible to participate and play adaptive sports. And some sports do have more specific requirements, and wheelchair football is one of those, and we'll cover that here in a minute. But typically, adaptive sports are for individuals with a physical disability that limits their ability to participate in a typical sport. So some common examples of different disability types of the athletes in our programs include spinal cord injuries, spina bifida, amputees, individuals with visual impairments, CP, scoliosis, just to name a few, and there are many, many others. And then a common misconception about many of our adaptive sport programs is that you have to be an everyday wheelchair user to participate. And that's definitely not the case. Although a lot of our sports do use manual sports chairs, you do not have to be an everyday wheelchair user, and many of our athletes are not. And then another common question we get is what kind of adaptive sports are out there? So really, if you can think of any typical sport, it can be adapted by either adding a piece of equipment or modifying a playing rule. So if you have a typical sport that you really enjoy watching or even participating in, there's most likely an adaptive version of it. We offer a wide variety of adaptive sports, and we like to break those down into kind of two different categories. The first being community-based programs, and these are typically open to all ages and disabilities. And we do offer competitive and recreational opportunities with most of our sports. With all of our programs, we provide all of the equipment. We want to remove that barrier for participation. So we provide all the sports chairs and all the sport equipment needed to participate. And then with that list of programs you see there, the sports do vary by location. So some of them we do offer in our Worcester, Cleveland, and Youngstown locations. Some of them may only be in Worcester, some only in Youngstown or Cleveland. So the best way to kind of find out what's available in your area is to just contact a program manager. And I'll provide my contact information at the end of this presentation here. And then the other category of sports is interscholastic programs, and these are school-based sports. So we've started a wheelchair basketball league. So we help teams across the state of Ohio implement wheelchair basketball teams within their district. And then we also help students get involved in their track and field teams. by either we provide trainings for coaches and athletes at the beginning of the season. We loan out track equipment to athletes, track chairs, throwing chairs, and we're just a resource for them throughout the season. So here's our list of upcoming webinars. So obviously tonight we're talking about wheelchair football. And then coming up in September, we'll have sled hockey and wheelchair rugby, followed by power wheelchair soccer in October, and then wheelchair basketball in November. And I will hand it over to Brian, and he's going to get into more specific information about wheelchair football.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I see we have Brian, Jamal, Jonathan, and Lisa here with us. Thanks for joining us to learn a little bit more about our wheelchair football league. It's definitely something we're very excited to do. As you can see on the screen, across the United States, there are not a ton of teams right now. We have 9 teams in the country for this upcoming season. And this football league was founded by Move United in 2020. So this is a pretty new opportunity that we're happy to get involved with this year with the partnership Bob Woodruff Foundation, NFL, and USA Football as well. So hopefully you are all in this category of eligible people, adults 18 plus, male or female, with a lower limb disability. So I do want to take a second and share my screen. I have a video, a little introduction from Move United. It's going to be just 45 seconds, just so you can kind of see a little bit about what it is. So give me a second. I'll share my screen here so you can see this video. Okay.
My name is Brad Lang, and I'm a veteran in United States Marine Corps. I've loved football since I was a kid. There is nothing like it. The adrenaline, the camaraderie. I felt like I was part of something bigger than myself, just like when I joined the Marine Corps. In 2011, I lost both my legs disarming IEDs under heavy enemy fire in Afghanistan. Returning home, I found a sense of belonging playing football again. The motivation, determination, and discipline is why I played then, and it's why I play now.
Okay, so you can see in that scenario, a veteran who had an injury at war, he's the person that this is benefiting. This benefits so many individuals across the country. And whatever your reason for playing is, we're happy that you're here on the call with us here, and hopefully you'll be participating with us as well. So thanks, Brooke, for letting me do that little introduction. But more about myself, my name is Brian Vaverka. I'm the Director of Programs, as Brooke gave me that brief introduction. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'll be working primarily out of Cleveland, but also across the entire state as well. And I have a lot of experience with 7-on-7 football. And so this game is 7-on-7 for wheelchair football. And I can't wait to get out there and draft up some plays and really help lead our team to success when we get our team together. So Brooke mentioned the equipment earlier, and by us providing the equipment, that's one less barrier to participate. We really just want you to come show up and be ready to play. And so the equipment that's involved in this game is the sport wheelchair, the helmet, the football, and mouth guards are optional. And so we're going to bring the sport wheelchairs out to our clinics, to our tryouts, and to our practices. And like Brooke said, you don't need to use a wheelchair every day to be eligible for this. But the helmets will be provided. We have a dozen or so footballs, and then the mouth guards we will not provide for you, but those are optional as well. So the playing surface is going to look a little bit different than a traditional football field. So you can see the picture of it on here. It is 76 yards long by 22 yards wide. So if you look at the picture of the field, it's split into two 30-yard halves. So it's really 60 yards with those 8-yard end zones as well. So you can see it's not a full 50 yards to midfield and another 50 with a 10-yard end zone. So, it's going to be a little bit smaller of a playing field, which is going to allow us to have a lot more scoring in our game, and offense is always exciting. So in this game, you don't have a traditional 4 downs to get 10 yards like you might see on TV on Saturday, Sundays, or even if you're going to a game on a Friday night. For this 7-on-7 game, you have to achieve the line to gain within 4 downs. Okay, so let's say that you're starting on the 20-yard line and you're going towards midfield away from your end zone. You have 4 downs to get to the 30-yard line. Let's say that you're starting on your 2-yard line going out towards midfield. Then you still have to get to that 15, which is more than 10 yards, but you have to get to that 15-yard line, which is considered the zone line to gain. And so after this presentation, I'll be sending out the full detail rules to you all. It's also on the Move United website, but we're going to try to go through some of those differences between the traditional football that you know and the wheelchair football that we have here. This is also played, as you can see in this picture, on a hard surface. So you're not trying to push along some grass or some mud or a turf field. You are going to be on a hard surface, which is going to make it easier to push or propel yourself. Here are some other significant rule changes. So we talked about the surface and dimensions. It is 7-on-7 and not 11-on-11. So the strategies are a little bit different for how you're going to run your offense or how you might play defense based on those positions. A tackle, now believe it or not, we are now all out individuals and knocking people out of their chair onto the ground. Safety first, of course. So a tackle is going to be a one-hand touch above the waist. So making sure that you do reach out and touch, the person's torso, the arms. The chair would not count, and below the waist would not count for a touch. The point after touchdown is going to change. There is no kicking in this game. Because we do need to have some type of lower body impairment. So we still have the touchdown that's worth 6 points. But now the PAT is either going to be 1 point for a pass play, or going for 2 will just be a run play. And you don't need to tell everyone ahead of time if you're, kicking or going for 1 or 2, just whatever that play, hopefully it scores to get you that 1 or 2 points. And then we're not going to kick any field goals in this game as well. So if you get close to the end zone, but you don't make it in the end zone within those 4 downs, you're not going to line up for a field goal in this game. You'll most likely just go for it. So we do play with a running clock. So it's going to be a 4-quarter game. The clock is going to run up until the last 2 minutes of the game. And then it will be more similar to what you see in the NFL with a 2-minute warning and those stopped clocked mechanics for out of bounds, for first downs, for incomplete passes. Within that last 2 minutes before the game is over, and at the end of the first half as well. Fumbles are generally a dead ball situation. Fumbles can be an unsafe situation. We do not want to have a lot of people in the same area with their hands reaching down below, high risk for injury there. So there are no fumbles during live ball play that is at the line of scrimmage. So what I mean by that is the only time fumbles are really okay is during the kickoff and punt situation that I'll talk about next. So if you're doing a handoff play, or if you're pushing up the field and you fumble it during a typical play, the ball will just be dead wherever it hits the ground. But during the kickoff and punt situations, it would be a live fumble because usually the space between players is a lot more. It's a lot further apart. So there's less risk of injury there. So you see that last bullet for kickoffs. It's actually, we call it a free kick pass because we're not kicking the ball. Instead, we're going to pass the ball to make sure that goes 15 yards for the minimum. And same with the punts. A scrimmage kick pass is what we'll call that for 15 yards as well. Then lastly, everyone is an eligible receiver. So it's not like you have linemen that are stuck on the line that can't go out for a pass. Everybody is eligible. Okay. I see your question there about the fumble. So if I'm possessing the ball on offense and I accidentally drop it or it slips out, the ball is going to be dead on that spot wherever it hits, but I'll still retain possession of the ball. So it's not anything too catastrophic like a turnover. Great questions. Thanks for putting those in the chat for me. Okay, I talked a little bit about the time. And feel free to put more questions in the chat as we go. If they're simple questions, I can answer them as we go. If they're more complex, I'll refer to the rule book, and I can even post that in the chat too, so you all can open up the full rule book if you don't want to look through everything. So 4 quarters, 15 minutes each. So same as an NFL game, except it's going to be that running clock up until the 2-minute drill is going to start. We do have a play clock as well. A 40-second play clock is what we'll be using with our Move United wheelchair football. So as soon as that ball gets placed, when the play ends, we're going to start that 40-second play clock, and you'll have 40 seconds to get the next play off. Usually that's plenty of time in order to do that. For overtime, should the games go into overtime, it's more similar to the NCAA rules compared to NFL. So where NFL rules, if you get an offensive touchdown in the first overtime, then that's the game over. Well, NCAA, both teams will get a chance to score. So similar to that, we're going to be starting at the 15-yard line going into the end zone, and both teams will have a chance to score within 4 downs. Now, should both teams score, let's say they go for 2 with a passing play, we'll go to a second overtime with the same rules, and a third overtime. And in the third overtime, they'll force you to go for 2. So it has to be then a running play. Excuse me, I said that a little backwards. The running play is what gives you 2 points. With the passing play, only 1 point. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so for the classifications, some of you might not be too familiar with classifications. What this is a way for Move United and for the game to be played as fairly as possible within a competitive balance. So what I mean by that is, if somebody has, severe lack of function, maybe that's upper body and lower body function, they're not going to be on the same scale as somebody who has a lot of function. Now, within our game, it's 7-on-7. You have up to 21 classification points on the field at the same time. So what that means is, among your 7 players, everyone is given a number between 1 and 4.5, just based on what you are able to do, what your abilities or your disabilities are, your level of function. And that's based on a whole system that I'm not going to go into right now. But as you can see, 21 divided by 7, that's going to be 3. So the average classification for the players on the field is going to be around 3. And should you have someone who is a 1, then you could also balance that with a 4.5 on the field at the same time. So this just helps make sure that teams don't all have extremely high functioning players on the field at the same exact time, because that wouldn't be fair for competitive balance. So this classification system is really going to help make sure that the team that we have on the field is similar skill or function wise to other teams on the field as well. And keep in mind, this sport, it's nationwide. We don't have another team right in Ohio that we can compare this to. So it does need to have a very similar system across the board. And this is Move United's way of doing that. So you would get classified, you would be given a number, and then we'll make sure, the coach will make sure that we have that 21 or under points on the field at the same exact time. I hope that made sense to you all. So that's it for the specifics on our wheelchair football here. I am going to go ahead and just post in the chat the rule book so you can have it. It is 68 pages long, okay? So I'm not going to expect you to go through absolutely everything. But I'm the kind of person who really enjoys rules. I like seeing the differences between the sports. So I've gone into this rule book many times, and if that's something that you want to do, great for you, but it'll be up to me and to the coaches to make sure that you know all the rules that are necessary for you to compete and to play. So thank you again, folks, for joining us here. Really appreciate it. I'm going to throw it back over to Brooke for some more details about our program.
All right, so we have some upcoming clinics. We'll typically be practicing once per week in Cleveland and in Worcester. So our upcoming clinics are the first one being Thursday, August 5th. So this Thursday in Worcester at the Galt Recreation Center. And that's going to be 7 to 8:30. And then we'll have a clinic in Cleveland this upcoming Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12. We'll also be having practices at both locations on Thursday, August 12th, just to get you that one extra practice session before tryouts. And then tryouts are going to take place in one location, and that will be Saturday, August 14th. So next Saturday, 10 to 12 at Cleveland Heights Community Center. And for each of these opportunities, we ask that you register in advance for each clinic or practice or tryout that you plan to attend. And if you're interested in any of these opportunities, you can just contact us and I can send you the link to register. Most of you have probably already received it in your email, but I can definitely send that back out again. And then I'll provide my contact information here at the end. So the competitive season will start with tryouts on the 14th, and then we'll end with our last tournament, October 31st. I already mentioned the practices will occur weekly in Worcester and Cleveland, and then that full practice schedule, along with more detailed information about the season, will be available after tryouts. We do have 2 tournaments we plan to attend. The first one, September 10th through the 12th in near Phoenix, Arizona, and then another October 30th and 31st in Chicago, Illinois. And a grant-funded travel stipend will be available. We'll have a lot more detail about that as we get closer to tryouts, but we will be able to help cover some travel expenses for you. And then if you're not interested in competing on our travel team, maybe you just want to play recreationally and practice with us, or if you're not quite eligible, maybe not quite old enough to play with us competitively, we do welcome you to come to practices and practice with the team. The more players we can have at practice, the more game-like scenarios we can have leading up to our tournaments. So like I mentioned, if you're ready to start playing or want to try one of our clinics, you can just email me and let me know whether you want to participate competitively or recreationally. And then Brian and I already mentioned, we will provide all of the equipment. So really all you have to do is register and then show up. Here's our contact information. So that's our office phone number and then my email. We are also on social media, so I definitely recommend that you follow us on Facebook. We post there quite a bit just about upcoming programs, and it's probably the easiest way to just keep track of what's going on within our organization. We'll post updates about wheelchair football as well. So that's really all we have. So we can go ahead and open it up to any more questions.
Also, I see that we have EU and Keith Maple joined us. So I just want to say welcome, guys. Brian and Brooke here with Adaptive Sports Ohio. And if you have any questions, now would be a great time to ask. Brooke, do they have to ask the questions in the chat right now?
So if you want to ask it live in person, you can go ahead and raise your hand and we can unmute you and you can ask that live, or you can put it in the chat or the Q&A as well. And we'll answer that.
Excellent. Yeah, I have 8 years of experience officiating 7-on-7 football. I have 4 years of coaching experience, so hopefully I can answer a lot of these questions that come through.
All right, looks like Jonathan has a question, so I'll go ahead and unmute Jonathan.
Excellent. Any luck?
Jonathan, are you able to unmute your microphone?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Didn't know I had to unmute it. You guys have 2 practices on the same day, the same time at different locations?
Yep, so one will take place in Cleveland and then one in Worcester.
Okay.
And Jonathan, you can choose whichever location that you prefer to go to. So we have those practices just to make it easier. So if you're closer to the Worcester location, you can go there, or if you're closer to Cleveland, you can come up this way for the practice. But we'll be doing the same exact practice in both locations.
Okay. Okay, just making sure that I was reading that right.
Yeah,
okay.
Great question. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, we have another question in the chat. Other than travel, are there other costs we need to be aware of? So the travel is definitely going to be the biggest bulk. And like I mentioned, we don't have a lot of details yet about the amount of the travel stipend. A lot of it's going to depend on the number of players we have and the cost of flights and everything. So I don't have a ton of information for you on costs at the moment, but can definitely provide that information as we have it.
Yeah. And then other than the travel, Brian, there aren't going to be any other fees. Like there's no tryout fee or any cost to participate with us. Like Brooke mentioned, it's the travel that's where any fees would come from, aside from you driving to the locations and just paying, gas to get to practice or tryouts. Hopefully that answered the question for you. Thanks for putting that in the chat for us.
And then we have another question. What's involved in the tryouts?
We have a great practice plan, a great tryout plan ready for you all. So as Brooke had on the earlier slide, we're going to be having a couple different practices before the tryout. So the tryout, we're going to be testing your skills, basic football skills, throwing, catching, your agility and speed in the chair, your football IQ, and we're going to be judging everyone, based on a rubric that we have for these individual skills. So that'll be the basis of the tryout over that 1.5 or 2 hour period that we have. And so the clinic and the practices that we have prior to that are going to be specifically to work on those skills. So that way, if somebody doesn't have a lot of football experience or a lot of wheelchair football experience, with which most people don't, you'll have a couple opportunities to really try it out, get some of the rust off, see what works the best, so you can really do your best during that tryout, and we can get the best evaluation of you. So I definitely behoove you and everybody else to attend the clinics and the practices prior to the tryout, so that you can work on those skills and you won't be surprised by anything once we do get to the tryout.
Yeah, and I will also mention, we do have some people that are unable to make the tryout date. So if you do want to try out, if you want to participate on the team, still let us know that, let me know that. And we'll definitely work with you to figure out another time to evaluate you, whether that be adding a second tryout date or just evaluating you maybe at the beginning of a practice session.
Great point. Yeah, thanks for that question.
All right, do we have any other questions before we head out?
Brooke, I see that Brian's hand is raised, but that might be from his chat question. I'm not sure if he has another one for us or not.
Hi, yeah, this is Brian. Can
Hey,
you
Brian.
guys? Yeah, I thanks for answering my question earlier. I also wanted to get clarification. So, are the 2 cities that you mentioned the only places that we will be traveling, or like will we have other games outside of that for the tournament?
Yep, those will be our only 2 competitive opportunities against other teams.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll have plenty of players that will allow us to do kind of full scrimmages at practice sessions. That's what would be ideal for us.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Brian, that's a good question. We don't have a ton of teams in our area, as you saw on that. I think that's the long-term goal, is to get, more teams in our region or in our state. So that way we can have some more competition locally. But for now, definitely Arizona and Chicago are going to be the bigger tournaments with some high level of play there for us.
Okay, gotcha. Sounds good. And then this question is more related to like the other adaptive sports, because I was noticing you guys have a lot of different types. I'm actually like my thing is boxing, and I was wondering if you guys had any knew of any programs like that, or had come across anything related to like wheelchair boxing.
I'm not very familiar with boxing, but we can definitely see if there's any other programs in the area and give you some resources for that.
Okay, thank you so much.
I like the lively chat. That's good.
All right, if there are no other questions, we can go ahead and let you go. But if you think of anything after the fact, again, always feel free to reach out. You have my contact information and our office phone number there. So we're always happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great to meet you all. Look forward to seeing y'all hopefully at one of the practices or the tryout.
Thank you again.
Have a great night, everyone.